Canadians could soon have the right to be forgotten. It's a matter being considered by the Federal Court of Canada this year at the request of the Privacy Commissioner. The right to be forgotten would allow people to request search engines remove old or potentially embarrassing links about them. Joining me now is Paul Shabes. He is a lawyer representing the Media Coalition, including CTV News, that has concerns about the issue. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
So we'll get right to it. In the court application, the commissioner named a complaint his office received. The complaint says this: a man alleges Google will not de-index links to news articles, even though they are outdated, inaccurate, and he says reveal his sexual orientation and serious medical conditions. So what is the Media Coalition saying here? What are the concerns?
Well, the concern is you're erasing history, you're erasing facts, you're erasing information that the public has a right to know about people. And this is, the way it's developed in Europe is that someone can make a request because they don't like an important thing that happened to them still being available on a search engine, and they can ask Google to take it down. And it's up to Google whether they take it down or not. And then people have lost that ability to find out something about somebody that may be important. And may affect how someone makes informed decisions about things. It may also affect the media's ability to get facts and information that's important when they're reporting on people today. So that's the concern, is that it's the public's right to know is being infringed and impaired.
With this law, there are potential freedom of expression issues. So how would the Media Coalition like lawmakers to kind of balance those concerns?
Well, they'd like them to balance the issue of privacy and prejudice with the right to free expression, which includes the right to information. And the problem that's occurred in Europe and which the media is concerned about in Canada is that this is an initiative simply being led by the Privacy Commissioner, who's saying it's up to the individual to somehow control what information you can get access to or not. And there's a public, historical and current interest in making sure that we all have access to accurate information.
This seems like something that we never would have encountered 10, 20 years ago before something like social media.
For sure. It's the internet, right? What used to be, you'd have to go to the library and look at a card catalog for or search through microfiche and so on, is now something that anybody can do by going to a search engine. But that doesn't mean search engines should become inaccurate and selective. They need to be open, they need to be transparent so that people can get all the information.
Paul, what are the next steps in this case, and when could we see a decision?
So there are a number of procedural steps that are going on now involving interventions and defining the precise scope of what the court will be looking at. Then they'll be filing evidence. I guess there'll probably be a hearing sometime in the next 6 months or so. And of course, it's the sort of case that won't stop at the first level. It's likely to go all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada.
Oh yeah, I imagine, because I get both sides. As a consumer, I get why I wouldn't necessarily want something out there about me that's super embarrassing or not necessarily relevant today. But I also, working in the media, understand there is a job to be done and that information needs to be there. There's going to be a lot of voices back and forth.
For sure. I mean, there are things that people, maybe rightly are a little embarrassed about at some moment in their life, but there's also a lot of other information. The European story is a great one because the case was brought by a man who was developing a business as a financial advisor, and he didn't like the fact that when he was Googled, you knew that he'd gone bankrupt 10 years earlier. I think that's kind of relevant for people if they're going to hire somebody.
Okay, Paul, thank you so much for coming in.
You're very welcome.
Coming up in our next hour, we do have more coverage of the story. We will be speaking to a privacy expert about who could benefit from this law.